we even look at the property, we look at the market. And if you go into a market like San Francisco, you know, or the Bay Area in general, you know it's a very strong market. You know there's a lot of competition. And you know that in the, even in the downturn, you know things are going to pick up because there's so much demand here. There are other smaller markets where, in the middle of Kansas, or I'm not picking on Kansas, but middle of, some of the less populated states, small towns, if one corporation closes, and that's the major employer in town, your real estate is going to suffer tremendously. If you're in a bigger metropolitan area, and there's a very broad spectrum of industries, you're going to do much better in a downturn or an upturn. So one of the things we look for are really fast or really strong employment growth, because if there's employment growth, there's going to be population growth. And if there's population growth, it's almost like a rising tide, all the ships will rise. Does that make sense? So Houston happens to be one of the fastest growing cities in the country. They're adding ridiculous amounts of jobs. In a downturn, it also gets hit pretty hard. I mean, there are always cycles up and down. And some areas, Tulsa, for example, is much, Tulsa, Oklahoma, is much flatter. Houston is a much bigger curve. But when you're at the bottom, you've got a huge rise, and then you better get out before it hits the top. We had one property in Far East Texas, in Longview. My partner had seen 2 units. We put it in contract. It took about 4.5 months to get it in contract. And we had tried to get on the property. We had sent a few people. The owner screamed and said, keep your people from trespassing on our property until we're in contract. So he spent all this time getting in contract. I set up for my management company to have 7 people to inspect the property, come out from Dallas. It's about a 2-hour drive. We all arrive. By the 10th unit, I said, stop your people, I'm out of here. Literally, we walked into the units. Number one, it was middle of the week, middle of the day. Most tenants were at home and in bed, so they're all on welfare. Number 2, they hadn't maintained the property at all. It's Texas, it gets hot. There's air conditioning units in every unit. The air conditioning units, obviously air conditioning, has a condenser and water drips. The drains had clogged. Rather than unclogging them, they put in these PVC pipes coming out of the ceiling across through the bathroom wall and dripping down into the sink. They had taken the pans under the condensers and taken a coat hanger and a big washer to lift the pan towards the new drain. I mean, everything was like that. So when you look at the expenses in that property, you know why the maintenance is low. They're not maintaining anything. So when you're looking at these, it may be that they're accurately reporting what they're spending, but it doesn't mean that's what it costs to run that property. That make sense? A, B, C, and D. So A is typically a newer property within 10 years old. B is 10 to 20. C is 20 to 30, maybe 35 years old. And D is not only old, but also in a war zone. So a D property, I wouldn't want to collect rent at night. Sometimes not even during the day. C minus is kind of in between. And there's A plus, B minus, they're intermediate steps. So on an A property, your expenses are going to be somewhere around 45% maybe. B properties, 50, 55. C pushing 60. And a D property, who knows? We looked at one in New Orleans. Their security budget was $120,000 a year. So in a sense, it was income, but it's being set aside for future expenses. And if you sell the property before doing those expenses, you get that back. I can manage a 200-unit building an hour a week, literally. I'm on the phone with a management company. I'm not dealing with tenants. I'm not evicting. I'm not doing legal. I'm not unclogging the toilets at 2 in the morning or dealing with a broken pipe. I'm not meeting the fire department at 3 in the morning, which happened. Everything is covered. I've
been to a lot of groups, and at least the presentation, the speakers are more on topic. I've in other groups where it just varied from week to week and it doesn't stay on topic, and I'm here to learn about investing.
I'm here attending this great class with Jean-Marc Landau. I had a great time learning all about investment analysis for properties. Jean-Marc was talking a lot about the actual analysis of the deal, nuts and bolts, so to speak. So that was very valuable today, very helpful.
Presentation wasn't just the kind of very high-level overview of what multifamily is, but it was drilled down. So we had a worksheet, we went in, we started looking at a property, we looked at what the expenses were, we looked at what the income was, and then we were given tips on how to really look at those expenses and figure out if those expenses were right or wrong. And that kind of detail is what I'm looking for in a group, because that's real value, as opposed to just talking about the very basics of multifamily. Now I'm getting to look at a deal and analyze that deal. And so we spent half an hour analyzing it. At the end of it, I was happy to figure out that, okay, I'd figured out some of the same things that were in the back of the sheet in the answers, and that gives me confidence that I can do the math on a real multifamily deal.
In the last couple of years, I've read a lot of books on real estate investing, and the first time I came here, I felt like all of those books together didn't give me enough value that I got in here. There's so much hands-on information. People seems that it's so easy, like real-time experience is just priceless. I've met Jean-Marc. I'm gonna hopefully do a deal with him soon. He pointed to another really good guy. He keeps sending me apartment complexes around Bay Area, so it's really good networking. You're like really in the game.